Hi, trade professionals. We are back with another Simply Trade news roundup, and we're really excited because this week is a little bit different, but hopefully fun for you guys. So we have Lalo here, I remembered. And then we have a special guest, which I'm very excited for. We're going to be two women today. It's Michelle Schulz. So good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
No, thanks for you for jumping on because we needed some shoes to fill, and you definitely exceeded all those shoes. So we're really excited for that, and I'm excited for what you have to say because I chose 3 articles like always, and I once we get into it, we'll just hear what you have to say to those, and I'm excited to get different perspectives, so we can go straight into them.
We just got back from GTech, myself personally, and Andy is not originally, but he grew up in Oklahoma since we were in Oklahoma City. So he grew up there and just took an extended vacation to visit with family. His brother, I believe, is in the area, and he's visiting with a bunch of high school buddies. I met one of his high school buddies.
Oh my God.
That's great. That's very cool.
I can't imagine that.
So anyway, but we had a lot of fun talking to his buddy. But anyway, so he's off on vacation, and we decided to try this out. Our very first guest host, and Michelle stepped it up. And I also want to say Michelle is so nice too, because she also decided a few weeks ago that she wants to sponsor our show. So we'll be running some of her ads. Thank you so much, Michelle, for that.
That is so exciting. Can only be, I don't know, wondering for what's to come. We're working on a lot of things, by the way. So I'm very excited. Hopefully all works out for us. Yeah. So going into the first article. So this week, it was, I think, all over the place articles that I found. There was not too much going on because usually we have like headlines of China and all that. Didn't see that this week, so maybe that's a good thing. I don't know. Maybe something is brewing. Hopefully not. But the article that I did find was pretty interesting, and I just would like to hear from you guys. So the headline is, "The President's Export Council should actively support a US-UK free trade agreement." So basically, what I found is, and I need to find my quick notes that I made. Okay. So obviously it says that increasing access abroad for the US firms means growing markets and innovation, which I love innovation. I think with innovation, we thrive. So I want to know, what does this trade deal mean for the US, and how do US firms inform themselves once the deal is set? Like as in rules, new compliance, how can you prepare? So I just would like to know those things.
Hi everyone, are you loving our podcast? Do you feel like watching instead of just listening to our episodes? We have started to share our podcast videos on our trade community, www.crowd.trade, where you can view the complete show, comment, and carry conversations with your peers. We have built a trade community around our training courses and different resources for you to collaborate and gain the knowledge you are looking for. Head over to crowd.trade and register for your free account. Let's start trading.
Awesome. Well, I'll start real quick. And just because we have a little bit of history with this, we did talk about it before when the UK equivalent of our trade ambassador was here visiting, and they were talking about, were they going to talk about a UK-US free trade agreement, and it was off the table completely. Nobody wanted to talk about that. It was more about, if you remember, Annik, it was more about the environment, like making sure that and then it was also about digital trade as well, just making sure that how we're going to regulate digital trade and stuff like that. Ironically, from this article, it says that those are two of the things that will benefit the most from a free trade agreement with the UK and the US. So anyway, I just thought that was interesting to see that they're talking about that. And obviously, I'm all for free trade agreements. I mean, I think those are good. there's always, and I do see it. I'm on the border, of course, when NAFTA was first going to come on. I mean, I know back in the day, Annik, you were not even you were not even an idea in your parents' head yet, but there was a guy named Ross Perot who used to say, if we have NAFTA, you're going to hear this big sucking sound of jobs and opportunities and everything leaving America. And it was a big deal. But anyway, you can probably look in your history books at that. But anyway, so I know there's that argument, but again, I am pro free trade agreements if they are put together correctly. But I just wanted to say that I don't know, Michelle.
Yes, I agree with you, Lalo. I am also very supportive of free trade agreements, whether they're bilateral or multilateral. And I think that a free trade agreement with the UK is somewhat overdue. I have always thought it was a little odd that we don't have a free trade agreement with Europe. Not to mention UK. It's interesting that we don't have free trade agreements with some of our closest allies, like the UK. We have many others: US, Korea. We have Australia. We have Israel. So many free trade agreements, but no UK, no Europe. So I don't know why. I really don't. Yeah.
Right.
Do you have a guess?
It's a mystery.
Is there no guess?
Maybe they weren't interested in doing an agreement with us. It really, to me, it honestly makes no sense. And I was on a subcommittee to the President's Export Council under Obama, so it's been a few years. But I was on the President's Export Council subcommittee. And that's, the type of thing that would get talked about, free trade agreements. I know the President's Export Council is very influential, and they probably could make some progress on the UK. But really, my only guess is that maybe there was not a trigger. There wasn't some sudden need to have a free trade agreement. What I can refer to most easily is the USMCA. So the USMCA, US, Canada, Mexico free trade agreement morphed from the NAFTA. And in my opinion, it's not all that different, except in certain areas. It just has, it has updates, it has new things, but it seems to me that became a really big hot button, and it became the new thing. We're going to get rid of NAFTA. We're going to start a new free trade agreement. And so maybe we just haven't had that push. I don't know.
So if this happens, right, let's say the free trade agreement happens, it opens up opportunities for Americans, correct? So obviously that is a new area to move in for some people, I would think. How can you prepare for that as a firm? I don't know if you know anything about that, or Lalo, but like, let's say for those listening that, would like to consider the UK, what do they have to do to prepare for this?
Right. The only one thing that I can see that I mean, not the one thing, but a big hurdle here is the UK and the US are both kind of high a little bit right now on these environmental and labor protections or legislation, whatever you want to call it. I mean, and not every company might be into like green or being just environmentally conscious, let's call it. You know what I mean? So if there is going to be something, from what I read in the article, that's part of what they want to make sure that things are in place for. You know what I mean? Something like that. So to me, if you're thinking, okay, I'm going to start selling a bunch of stuff in the UK because of this free trade agreement, if it happens, of course, you got to look at why, or the conditions as to why you're going to go in there. And that's one of them. I would say that would be the biggest thing. I mean, not the biggest thing, but one of the things that you should be looking at, you normally don't look at, like when you're going into Mexico and Canada under USMCA, there are some rules behind that. but I don't think they're as strict as it would be under the UK-US one. So that's the only one thing that stood out for me, but anyway, I don't know about you, Michelle.
Yeah, I think that makes sense because we've seen a trend with free trade agreements with more emphasis on labor, forced labor, modern slavery, and that's a great thing. Trying to improve human rights. Being from Dallas, Texas, I have to tout our state bar. The Texas State Bar was the first bar in the country to have a human rights committee, and it was started by the late Tom Wilson, who started that several years ago. So human rights, I mean, that's long overdue. And I think human rights, technology, labor and employment, these are all areas that are going to be emphasized now and probably should be. I think that will be a trend across the board.
Yeah. You know what? I feel like we talk about this and then a year later it comes, oh, remember we talked about this last year.
Yeah. Well, the biggest problem is look at TPP. I mean, that was an agreement with some European. No, I don't think so. But anyway, the TPP was approved under the Obama administration. It was a go, 100% go, and then it took forever. Of course, like Michelle said, it just takes a while, and then it just slightly slipped into. It almost went through 100% under Obama. And it just slightly went into the Trump administration and it immediately got killed. So yeah, I mean, it could happen.
I think we're at this border now too, right? Because I mean, I don't know if you guys are. Is it 2024 is the new election year, right?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. So I don't know, because you could think that sometimes they do this, which I did read. I think that it's trying to happen before the whole change happens. I don't know. I really have no idea about this whole election thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we're going into the second article now, which I think we went deep into the first one. So this one is the headline goes, "Friendshoring offers Canada both risks and opportunities in the new era of global trade." And to me, this article stuck out to me because friendshoring, I thought, was only opportunities. So when I read risks, it was, I didn't really know what to think about it anymore. And I'm going to read a section about it that stood out to me too. It says, "No matter what policies are implemented, friendshoring will likely result in tit-for-tat trade wars, higher production costs, and an erosion in the purchasing power of Canadian households." So my questions are, what do you make out of this statement from the article? And do you think this is a valid point being made? If so, why is friendshoring so popular then? Or is it popular? So these are all my questions. So hopefully I'm excited to know about this one because I really have no idea.
So I'll jump in real quick on that one. I think friendshoring, I love how they call it friendshoring. The thing that I've been hearing lately is nearshoring, but friendshoring sounds even nicer. So yeah, I can see how there would be risks because we are seeing a movement of manufacturing because of all the rules against China, all the high tariffs, the Section 301, etc. I know that I personally have a number of clients who've moved to Mexico. I don't know that many who have moved to Canada yet, but hey, why not? I mean, they're close. It's cheaper. The quality would be good. And I guess they're just talking about now we're going to have some competition. So maybe it could result in trade wars, but I'm not so sure that it's a bad thing, that it's risky. They will have to plan for it, and there could be higher production costs, but that may happen anyway. I don't know. What do you think, Lalo?
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, I think what you said, that's true. I mean, so yeah, I mean, I did a little more research and I dug in, and yeah, that's basically nearshoring as friendshoring. So that's what I concluded. So, it's just a nice way of saying it nowadays, I guess, so okay, that's cool. But so what I did, and I also dug in a little deeper, and why Canada? I was just thinking about that because typically you think Mexico, right? Because it's, of course, lower labor. You typically think that. You typically would think maybe somewhere in Central America, again, because it's a little closer. But why Canada? Canada is, I'm not going to say is just as expensive or anything as the U.S., but I mean it's not a third world country. I'm not saying Mexico really is, but I mean it's been classified as it at times. But anyway, why Canada? So I did a little more digging, and it's talking a lot about they have critical minerals in raw materials in producing items that will help with, back to that buzzword, Annik, the environment, environmentally safe products and stuff like that. And that'll get us away from fossil fuel related products or manufacturing. And so that's why they're saying that Canada is really attractive to companies, including China, because China may have some of those resources and some of those minerals, et cetera. But of course, being accused of like forced labor and things like that, you know what I mean? So they probably figure, let's go manufacture in Canada. They have the access to these minerals that are not available, like in Mexico, for example, and maybe not even the U.S. So that's the reason why they're doing that. But well, not the reason, but that's one of the reasons, but yeah, I think what's happening is obviously it's good. It's pretty good for everyone and really involved, because it's near the U.S. It's the shipping cost would be way lower. Inventory would be more accessible. Supply chains may not get as disrupted, but but of course, there is the article started off by saying, you said it, Annik, tit for tat, trade war, and all that, and it's true. It could happen, if Canada aligns itself with China, the U.S. is going to say, hey, I thought you were our buddies, why are you doing that? You know what I mean? And so, it could lead to that. So who knows? I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, I was talking to someone at the conference, at the GTech conference, and they were Asian. They were not from China. They were close by, but they spend a lot of time in China. And they basically said, we're just like you guys in America. All we want is to thrive and make a living. And it's just too bad our governments are screwing all this up for us. You know what I mean? People are people, we just want to make a living. We want to, et cetera, et cetera. It's just that our governments can't get along and just play nice with each other. You know what I mean? I want the whole sandbox to myself. I don't want you to play in my sandbox type thing, So anyway, I just thought that was interesting, and it's true. We're all just there to make a living and make everything around us better. So anyway, that's my observation on this.
It does make sense. I see the risk. I think, Michelle, you mentioned those, and I see the opportunities. And yeah, so I'm glad we covered that one. So the next one is I love the PwC surveys. They're so good. Like they don't have them all the time, but sometimes I'll catch one because someone had put it on like LinkedIn or whatever. Not sure where I found this one, but it says, and I don't really have a question. I do have a question, but it's not, I think, a news related question. So it says most companies see a need to reduce supply chain risk, but few invest. So it was a whole study made, and something that I questioned is already in the title, basically. So if there is supply chain risk, why wouldn't you invest? Because I think I have talked to someone at ICPA before, and that's the first time I discovered that there's loads of risk that comes with supply chain and logistics, because there's billions of dollars at stake. And I know lawyers handle this the most because there's a lot of cases, where companies mess up or forced labor or whatever. So there's loads of risk. But why wouldn't companies invest in this type of stuff, even if it's just compliance for your employees? I know technology is probably the best thing for keeping risk low, But I just don't know, and so I want to ask if you've experienced any of this, or what your opinions are.
Yes, definitely. This topic is kind of near and dear to my heart because, um, yes, as a trade lawyer, I think all trade lawyers run into the same problem. Folks will say, well, I've been doing this the same way for years and I never got caught, so why should I put money into this now? And especially when technology is so expensive. The technology has become more advanced, for example, in tracing where the goods came from in your supply chain. For, was there forced labor 10 tiers down? I don't know. But companies to me seem reluctant to invest in risk until they get in trouble. There are a lot of companies that do it the right way, but this focus on efficiency usually comes from other departments that maybe don't understand the dollars that are at stake here for trade and why compliance is actually a moneymaker in the long run, because you're not going to be getting those fines and penalties, and you can actually understand and take advantage of free trade agreements. But I think this is all part of the fight between stepping on the brake and the gas pedal. The risk, yeah, we know it's there, but maybe we can save some money. So that's kind of, I think people pay more when they take that approach. And just thought it was really interesting that companies were interested in efficiency more than things like resilience and being prepared.
Yeah, even though I think that efficiency kind of is being compliant and under having that kind of technology. Like, it's so funny when people say, oh, the other way is more efficient. No, not really, because if you get towards a problem, you're trying to do damage control and you were not proactive. So the damage control is not going to work.
Exactly. And then what do you do if you have to stop importing or stop exporting, as some companies have had to do in the past? It may seem efficient now not to invest, but the more sophisticated our supply chain technology becomes, the more important it is, because the government has similar technologies. So do you really want them to be ahead and know a whole lot more about your stuff than you do?
Oh yeah, that's a good point. That's crazy, and it's a little sad that this is the outcome of this article. But maybe also, could it be a money problem that they just don't have the resources for it? Or
maybe they're thinking short term. Maybe their resources are, somewhat limited now, and they're thinking, well, we'll save now and we'll worry about that later. Sometimes I just see resources allocated to the craziest things, though. They'll pay for something that to me makes no sense, and then cut corners on compliance. So I don't know. It seems to me short term versus long term is an issue, and companies that think in the long term are smart to look ahead.
And I think also it has to do with when I used to work at a software company, and we used to, I mean, we it was not supply chain software, but it was in trade compliance. But when we would go in and try to do this, it was, I mean, there is a lot of resources that you need to allocate, manpower. What I mean by resources, money, of course, but resources in the form of people, because you need to have people still doing what you're doing to keep the ship afloat, per se. And then you need to have a new crew or a new group, a team, to implement and to make sure that that new process is going to get implemented. I don't know, but lately, of course, since the pandemic and during the pandemic, we've been hearing about shortage of labor. You know what I mean? And people's willingness to do certain jobs, and companies having trouble hiring people and staying on. I mean, that's part of the problem. Yeah. So what do trade people have to do? I guess the takeaway is, you pretty much, number one, you would have to invest in your money in a new technology, really, that's where you're going to become more resilient. I guess that's what this is talking more about. The PwC report or survey talks more about using technology. So, invest the money, I guess, plan better. I don't know what it means
Compliance.
I don't know what it would mean to keep employees.
It's getting a little bit worse. I mean, where companies are going to have to really adjust, because apparently my generation has really high requests. But yeah, I guess we did go into the point of this survey, and I definitely agree with both of you guys and learned a lot during those 3 articles. I think we covered them very well, and I appreciate you, Michelle, for giving us all the intake, and then also Lalo, of course. It was definitely great, and it was a little different today, which I liked. I do have an interesting fact. It's not Taylor Swift based. I tried so hard not to make it Taylor Swift. Do you like her?
Oh, I'm a big Swiftie. I think she's great.
I am like obsessed. You have no idea. I mean, I have tickets, can't go. She's not coming to Germany until a little bit while, which is kind of sad.
Oh wow. Yeah, that would be incredible to have someone from the logistics team on the show.
God, I know. I reached out to someone, and I really hope he I don't know, maybe I gave him the podcast. I hope he listens to it. And then I wrote him a nice note, because I truly do think it would be I mean, not even going in detail about who the artist is, but just mainly talking about the management, the risk, how you succeed in that environment with so much pressure. And I think it'd be great to talk to someone that's in charge and knowing kind of what the plan is and how other people can kind of become that kind of successful. So yeah, I mean, hopefully we'll see. Anyways, praying. I really do have a fact. So so the fact is, and this is 2018, so please correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not going to be wrong. The fact's going to be wrong. North America is the most extensive free trade zone in the world, close to 5 times the size of the European Union.
So in 2018, in 2018, that was probably true, but they're saying that right now the RCEP, the Asian, that might actually be overtaking it. So, but anyway, yes, at one point, you're right. That was a lot of, I think it still might be. I don't know. I'm just off of like stupid little tidbits that I keep in my head. And I thought I heard or saw something about that. But anyway, because RCEP is like Asia, all those Far East countries. And so they have a free trade agreement as well. And so I think that might have overtaken it a little. But anyway, but you're probably right. It's probably
take
still true.
No offense if I'm not right, because it didn't come out of my head. It came out off the internet. The internet's not always right. But maybe someone can fact check that, or someone can comment if that's wrong, or email us if you have concerns, questions, anything. Anyway, so that's a wrap for this news roundup, which was so fun. I'm so happy that you came on, Michelle.
Thank you. You guys are a blast.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for taking some time. I hope it wasn't too long, but I very much appreciate it. And you can come on anytime. So, so anyways, if you guys have any questions, I'm talking to our listeners now. If you have any questions, concerns, want to come on the pod, maybe want to discuss news with us, who knows, please reach out to us. We'll be happy to talk to you. And other than that, we will be back next week. So please have a great week. No, wait, you're going to hear this on Monday or Tuesday. So you're going to have a great week. That's what you're going to do. And we'll be back. Okay, bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for joining us. Simply Trade is brought to you by the generous contributions of Global Training Center. You can follow the show and GTC on LinkedIn or Twitter and other social networks. Make sure you check out the show notes in the description for a full rundown of today's show with all the important links. Also, make sure that you share this with a friend and subscribe on your favorite streaming platform. We really like hearing from you. If you enjoyed the show, make sure to rate and review wherever you listen to this podcast. If you or someone you know would like to be a guest in the show or would like to sponsor Simply Trade or suggest any topic you would like for us to discuss, please contact us via email at simplytrade@globaltrainingcenter.com, or you can DM us on Twitter at simplytradepod. Thank you again for the privilege of your time. Happy trading. Simply Trade is not a law firm or an advisor. The topics and discussions conducted by Simply Trade hosts and guests should not be considered and is not intended to substitute legal advice. You should seek appropriate counsel for your own situations. These conversations and information are directed towards listeners in the United States for informational, educational, and entertainment purposes only and should not be substituted for legal advice. No listener or viewer of this podcast should act or refrain from acting on the basis of information on this podcast without first seeking legal advice from counsel. Information on this podcast may not be up to date depending on the time of publishing and the time of viewership. The content of this posting is provided as is. No representations are made that the content is error-free. The views expressed in or through this podcast are those of the individual speakers, not those of their respective employers or Global Training Center as a whole. All liability with respect to actions taken or not taken based on the contents of this podcast are hereby expressly disclaimed.